Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished checking the air filters in Section C7. The work was boring, but it paid the bills. New Kepler Station buzzed with activity around him. Aliens from dozens of worlds walked past, talking in languages he didn't understand. Most barely noticed the human maintenance worker. He packed his tools and started walking toward the next repair job. The lower levels of the station were quieter. Fewer shops, fewer people. Just storage areas and service tunnels. Marcus liked it better down here. Less crowding, less noise. A sharp cry made him stop. It came from the alley between two storage buildings. Marcus frowned. The sound was high-pitched, scared, like a child in trouble. He set down his toolbox and moved toward the sound. At the mouth of the alley, he saw them. 3 big aliens had cornered something small against the wall. The smallest figure was definitely a child. She had pale blue skin and large eyes. Her species was called Velthari. Marcus remembered. They were known for being smart and peaceful. The 3 thugs were different species. One looked like a walking lizard with metal teeth. Another had 4 arms and gray skin. The third was covered in black fur with red eyes. All of them were much bigger than the little girl. "Tell us the access codes," the lizard thing hissed. "Your mother gives us the diplomatic passwords. Or you get hurt." The child pressed herself against the wall. "I don't know any codes," she whispered. "Please, I just want to go home." The 4-armed alien laughed. It was not a nice sound. "Maybe we need to make you remember. Pain helps memory." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had seen bullies before. On Earth, in the colonies, and now here. The same ugly pattern everywhere. Strong, picking on weak. Many on one. It made him sick. The smart thing would be to call station security. Fill out a report. Let the proper authorities handle it. That's what most people would do. That's what the aliens expected him to do. Instead, Marcus stepped into the alley. "Hey," he said loudly. "Leave the kid alone." All 3 thugs turned to look at him. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, the furry one started laughing. "A human," it growled. "This is not your business, maintenance man. Walk away while you still can." Marcus took another step forward. "I said, leave her alone." The lizard alien hissed angrily. "Stupid human. You don't understand. This is alien business. Your kind should stay out of things too big for you." "She's just a child," Marcus said. He moved. So he was between the thugs and the little girl. "Whatever problem you have, it's not with her." The gray alien with 4 arms cracked its knuckles. All 4 hands made popping sounds. "You want to play hero? Human? We'll show you what happens to heroes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you RJ. I makes developer 4. We having with a gray alien with 4 arms cracked its knuckles. Marcus wasn't a big man. He wasn't young anymore either. His military days were behind him. These 3 aliens were all bigger, stronger, and meaner than him. He knew he couldn't win a fight against them, but the child behind him was shaking with fear. She reminded him of his sister's daughter back on Earth. Small, innocent, scared, someone who needed protecting. "I won't move," Marcus said quietly. The furry alien snarled and swung a massive fist at Marcus's head. Marcus tried to dodge but wasn't fast enough. The blow caught him on the side of his face, spinning him around. Stars exploded behind his eyes. He staggered but didn't fall. More importantly, he didn't move away from the child. "You asked for this, human," the lizard hissed. What followed was brutal. 3 against 1. Fists, claws, and kicks rained down on Marcus. He tried to protect his head and stomach, but there were too many attacks coming too fast. Each hit drove him to his knees, but each time he struggled back up. The child sobbed behind him, but Marcus could tell she was unhurt. A kick to his ribs sent fire through his chest. Something broke inside. Marcus gasped and fell forward, but he crawled back to block the path to the girl. Blood ran down his face from cuts above his eyes. "Stupid human," the gray alien panted. "Why don't you stay down?" Marcus spat blood and looked up at them. "Because she doesn't deserve this." The furry alien raised its foot to stomp on Marcus's back. Then security alarms started wailing in the distance. The thugs looked at each other nervously. "Security patrol," the lizard cursed. "We need to go." "What about the codes?" the four-armed alien asked. "We'll try again later, when there's no crazy human around." They ran, disappearing into the maze of service tunnels. Marcus tried to stand but couldn't. His legs wouldn't work right. Everything hurt. The world kept spinning. Small hands touched his shoulder. The Velthari child knelt beside him, her large eyes filled with tears. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Marcus managed a weak smile despite the blood on his lips. Because it was the right thing to do. The security patrol found them there minutes later. Marcus, unconscious on the ground, the child sitting beside him, holding his hand and refusing to leave until the medical team arrived. As the medics loaded Marcus onto a stretcher, the little girl looked up at the security chief. "He saved me," she said in her small voice. "The human saved me." The security chief, a tall blue alien, shook his head in confusion. "Why would a human risk himself for an alien child?" The girl watched the medical team carry Marcus away. "I don't know," she said, "but I'll never forget it." Neither would her mother, when she learned what had happened. Neither would anyone else who heard the story in the days to come. A simple maintenance worker had done something that surprised everyone on the station. He had chosen to protect a stranger's child, even when it cost him everything. Kethmara received the emergency call while in the middle of a trade negotiation. Her daughter was safe, but there had been an incident. She rushed through the station corridors, her heart pounding with fear and anger. When she reached the medical bay, she found Zixara sitting in the waiting area. The little girl ran into her mother's arms, sobbing. Kethmara held her tight, checking for injuries. There were none. "I'm okay, Mother," Zixara whispered. "The human saved me. He wouldn't let them hurt me." A security officer approached them. His name was Captain Ural, and Kethmara had worked with him before on diplomatic matters. "Ambassador Kethmara," he said formally, "your daughter is unharmed. However, the human who intervened is in critical condition." Kethmara looked through the window of the medical room. A human male lay unconscious on a bio bed. Medical equipment surrounded him, beeping and flashing. His face was swollen and covered with bandages. She could see the rise and fall of his chest was labored. "What exactly happened?" she asked. Captain Urel read from his datapad. "Marcus Chen, station maintenance worker. He found your daughter being threatened by members of the Claw Gang. They were demanding diplomatic access codes. When Chen intervened, they attacked him. He shielded your daughter and refused to move despite severe injuries." Kethmara stared at the unconscious human. "He doesn't know us. Why would he risk his life for a stranger?" "That's what everyone is asking," Captain Urel said. "The medical staff is confused too. They can't understand why he didn't just call for help and leave." Dr. Vash, the station's chief medical officer, approached them. He was a tall, thin alien, with gray skin and multiple eyes. "Ambassador," Dr. Vash said, "I need to speak with you about the human's condition." They walked to his office. Zixara stayed close to her mother, still shaken by the events. "The human has 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and severe bruising," Dr. Vash explained. "But that's not what puzzles me. According to the security footage, he remained conscious and alert even after sustaining injuries that would have disabled most species." He continued protecting your daughter until he physically collapsed. Kethmara felt something cold in her stomach. Will he recover? Yes, with time. But I must ask, is this normal human behavior? In my experience, most species prioritize their own survival above all else. This level of self-sacrifice for a non-related individual is unusual. Kethmara thought about this. The Velthari were a peaceful people. They avoided violence and dangerous situations. If one of her people had been in Marcus's position, they would have called security and waited at a safe distance. It was the logical thing to do. But this human had done something illogical. Something that defied the basic survival instincts that drove most intelligent life. Dr. Vash, she said slowly, in our culture, we have an ancient tradition. It's called HFY War, the life debt. Dr. Vash's multiple eyes blinked in surprise. That hasn't been invoked in centuries, because our people rarely face situations that require it. We're careful, cautious. We avoid danger. Kethmara looked at her daughter, then back at the medical room where Marcus lay. But when someone risks everything to save what you value most, how can you respond with anything less than complete commitment? Over the next 2 days, Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time he woke, his first words were always the same. Is the girl okay? Kethmara spent hours at his bedside, trying to understand this strange human. She learned he had no family on the station. He lived alone in small quarters and worked long hours maintaining the station's systems. He was quiet and kept to himself. Why do you think he helped me? Zixara asked on the 3rd day. They were sitting beside Marcus's bed again. The human was awake now, though still weak. He had insisted that Zixara shouldn't blame herself for what happened. I don't know, little one, Kethmara admitted, but I intend to find out. When Marcus was finally able to sit up and talk normally, Kethmara asked him directly, Mr. Chen, why did you risk your life for my daughter? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When I was a child, I saw bullies pick on smaller kids. My father told me something I never forgot. He said the only thing necessary for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. But she's not even your species, Dr. Vash said. He had been listening from the corner. Marcus looked at Zixara, who was coloring pictures at a small table nearby. She's a child. That's all that matters. Kethmara felt something shift inside her chest. This human had just expressed something fundamental that her own people had somehow lost. The willingness to act when action was needed, regardless of personal cost. Mr. Chen, she said formally, I want you to know that I am invoking HFY War. The life debt of my family is now bound to your welfare. Marcus looked confused. I don't know what that means. It means, Kethmara said, that saving my daughter has created a bond between us that cannot be broken. Your well-being is now as important to me as my own family's. Dr. Vash made a choking sound. Ambassador, are you certain HFY War hasn't been invoked since we became too comfortable hiding from the universe? Kethmara finished. This human has reminded me of something we forgot. Sometimes you must stand up, even when it's dangerous. Word of the life debt spread quickly through the station's alien community. Some thought Kethmara had lost her mind. Others were simply curious about this human who had inspired such an extreme response. Marcus was released from the medical bay a week later. As he walked slowly back to his quarters, Zixara walked beside him, chattering about her drawings and her school lessons. You don't have to visit me, Marcus told her. I'm sure you have better things to do. Zixara looked up at him with large, serious eyes. Mother says you're family now. Family, visits, family. Marcus stopped walking. He had been alone for so long, he had forgotten what family felt like. Now this alien child was looking at him like he mattered, like he belonged somewhere. "Okay," he said softly. "Family visits family." Behind them, Kethmara watched and felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. This strange human had not only saved her daughter, but maybe he could help save her people from their own fear. She just didn't know yet how much danger that hope would bring to all of them. 2 weeks after the attack, Marcus was back at work. His ribs still ached, and he moved more slowly than before, but the station's systems needed maintenance. Life went on. What he didn't expect was the attention. Other aliens stared at him as he walked through the corridors. Some seemed curious, others afraid. A few looked at him like he was dangerous. "You're famous," said Janet Wong, another human worker. She joined him for lunch in the small human section of the food court. "Half the station thinks you're crazy. The other half thinks you're some kind of hero." Marcus poked at his food. "I just did what anyone should do." "That's the problem," Janet said. "Most aliens wouldn't do what you did. They're trying to figure out if all humans are like you, or if you're just weird." Before Marcus could answer, Captain Urel approached their table. The security chief looked tired and frustrated. "Mr. Chen, I need to speak with you. It's about the attack on the Velthari child." They went to the security office. Captain Urel showed Marcus several data screens with pictures and information. "We've been investigating the Claw Gang," Captain Urel explained. "What we found is troubling. The attack on Zixara wasn't random. They were specifically targeting Velthari diplomatic families." Marcus studied the screens. "Why?" "That's what we're trying to figure out. The Claw Gang usually just steals cargo and extorts shop owners. Going after diplomats is new for them. And dangerous." More pictures appeared on the screens. Marcus saw aliens he didn't recognize, but they all looked wealthy and important. "We think someone is paying them," Captain Urel continued. "Someone who wants to disrupt the peace negotiations between the Velthari and other species." Marcus felt cold. "You mean this might happen again?" "It's possible. That's why I need to ask you something important. Will you help us?" "I'm just a maintenance worker." Captain Urel leaned forward. "You're the only person on this station who acted when everyone else would have walked away. That makes you special. We need someone the Claw Gang doesn't expect. Someone they think is just a normal human." Marcus thought about Zixara. The little girl visited him every day after her lessons. She was learning to speak better human English, and he was learning some Velthari words. She was smart and funny and curious about everything. "What do you want me to do?" Over the next few days, Marcus learned more about station politics than he ever wanted to know. The peace negotiations were more important than most people realized. Several alien species were deciding whether to include humans in the Galactic Commerce Treaty as full partners instead of junior members. Some aliens supported this. They believed humans had unique qualities that could benefit everyone. Others opposed it. They saw humans as violent and unpredictable. "The attack on my daughter was meant to send a message," Kethmara explained. She was in Captain Urel's office with Marcus, reviewing the investigation files. "Anyone who supports human inclusion will be targeted." Marcus felt sick. "Because I helped Zixara? I made things worse?" "No," Kethmara said firmly. "Because you helped Zixara. You showed them something they feared. That humans will fight to protect others. Even strangers." The investigation continued. Marcus went back to his normal work, but now he carried a small communication device. If Captain Urel needed him, he could call immediately. 3 days later, the call came. Marcus was fixing a water recycler when his comm buzzed. "Chen, we need you in Section D12. Now." He dropped his tools and ran. Section D12 was where many of the alien diplomats had their offices. When he arrived, he found Captain Urel. with several security officers surrounding a building. "What's happening?" Marcus asked. "The Claw Gang has taken hostages," Captain Urel said grimly. 3 Velthari diplomats and their assistants. They're demanding safe passage off the station and a ship. Marcus looked at the building. It was tall and narrow, with only one main entrance. "How many gang members?" "At least 6. Maybe more." Captain Urel handed him a small earpiece. "They don't know we're watching yet. We need someone to get inside and report what they see." "You want me to spy on them?" "I want you to be a maintenance worker doing his job. The building's environmental system has been acting up. You have a reason to be there." Marcus put on the earpiece and picked up a tool bag. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. "What if they recognize me?" "Kurd. The Claw Gang has dozens of members. The ones who attacked Zeke's Ara are in custody. These are different aliens." As Marcus walked toward the building, he thought about the hostages inside. They were probably scared, just like Zeke's Ara had been. Someone needed to help them. The building's lobby was empty except for one guard. The alien looked bored and barely glanced at Marcus as he walked to the maintenance panel. "Environmental repair," Marcus said, showing his work order. The guard waved him through without interest. Marcus took the service elevator to the 3rd floor, where the Velthari offices were located. As the elevator rose, he could hear voices arguing in different alien languages. The elevator stopped, and Marcus stepped into chaos. 6 members of the Claw Gang had set up a barricade in the main hallway. 3 Velthari diplomats and 4 assistants sat against the wall, their hands bound. They all looked terrified. Marcus kept his head down and walked toward the environmental control panel like he belonged there. His earpiece crackled softly. "Report," Captain Urel's voice whispered. 6 hostiles, Marcus whispered back, pretending to examine the panel. 7 hostages. They're scared but alive. As he worked, Marcus listened to the gang members talking. They were nervous. This wasn't their usual type of crime, and they knew it. "When do we get the ship?" one of them asked. "Boss says 2 hours. Another replied. "Then we take the Velthari with us. Make sure nobody follows." End. Marcus's blood went cold. They weren't planning to release the hostages. They were going to take them as permanent prisoners. He needed to do something. But what? He was one person against 6 armed criminals. If he tried to fight them, the hostages would be hurt. Then he remembered something from his military training. Sometimes the best way to win a fight was to avoid it entirely. Marcus looked at the environmental control panel. It controlled air circulation, temperature, and lighting for the entire floor. An idea began to form in his mind. It was risky. It was dangerous. It was probably stupid. But someone had to protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. Marcus began to work. Marcus's plan was simple, but dangerous. He slowly adjusted the environmental controls, gradually reducing oxygen levels while increasing carbon dioxide. The change was so gradual that nobody would notice at first. Meanwhile, he whispered into his earpiece, "Captain Urel, I'm going to create a distraction. When the lights go out, send your team." "Chen, what are you planning?" came the worried response. "Trust me." Marcus waited until the gang members started looking drowsy. The reduced oxygen was making them sluggish and confused. Then, he cut the power to the lights. The hallway plunged into darkness. Alien voices shouted in confusion and anger. Marcus heard the hostages crying out in fear. "Security! Move in!" Captain Urel's voice echoed through the building. What followed was chaos in the dark. Marcus crawled toward the hostages, feeling his way along the wall. His earpiece had fallen out somewhere, but he could hear security officers fighting with the gang members. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. Marcus reached the first Velthari diplomat and started cutting the bonds around her hands. "It's okay," he whispered. "Help is here." A gang member spotted him and raised a weapon. Marcus threw himself in front of the diplomat as the alien fired. The energy blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Pain flared through his arm and chest, but security officers were already tackling the shooter. Within minutes, all 6 gang members were captured or unconscious. Marcus sat on the floor, holding his burned shoulder. The Velthari diplomats gathered around him, all talking at once in their musical language. "You saved us," one of them said in Basic. "But why? We are not your people." Marcus looked at their grateful faces. They reminded him of Zixara. Intelligent, gentle people who shouldn't have to live in fear. "Because it was right," he said simply. Captain Urel helped Marcus to the medical bay. As Dr. Vash treated his shoulder wound, the security chief debriefed him. "That was incredibly dangerous," Captain Urel said. "And incredibly effective. How did you know to use the environmental controls?" "Military training," Marcus replied. "Sometimes the best weapon is the one nobody expects." Well, it worked. We captured all 6 gang members, and they're talking. We're getting closer to finding out who's behind this. Dr. Vash finished treating Marcus's shoulder. "You seem to make a habit of getting injured while protecting others." Marcus flexed his arm carefully. "Better me than them." Word of the hostage rescue spread even faster than the first incident. By the next day, Marcus found himself the center of attention he didn't want. Alien reporters tried to interview him. Diplomats wanted to meet him. Even other humans on the station looked at him differently. "You're becoming a symbol," Kethmara told him during one of their regular meetings. She and Zixara visited him every day now, and he had started looking forward to these times. "I don't want to be a symbol," Marcus said. "I just want to do my job and be left alone." Zixara was practicing her human writing at the small table in his quarters. She looked up from her work. "Mother says symbols are important. They help people believe in good things." "Your mother is very wise," Marcus said, smiling at the child. Kethmara's expression grew serious. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. I've been called back to the Velthari homeworld. The council wants to discuss my invocation of Kethvel more." Marcus felt a chill. "It might be. The council is traditional. They don't like change or risk. My binding our family to a human has upset many of them. What will happen? I don't know. They might order me to break the life debt. They might remove me from my diplomatic position. They might decide that humans are too dangerous to work with." Marcus looked at Zixara, who had stopped writing and was listening with worried eyes. "Maybe it would be better if you did break the life debt," Marcus said quietly. "I don't want to cause problems for your family." Both Kethmara and Zixara spoke at the same time. "No," Kethmara continued. "Marcus, you don't understand what Kethvel More means to our people. It's not just about obligation or duty. It's about recognizing true worth in another being. Breaking it would dishonor not just my family, but everything my daughter and I have learned from you. But your career is less important than doing what's right." She smiled. "I think I'm learning human values." The day before Kethmara was supposed to leave for the Velthari homeworld, Captain Urel called another meeting. "We've made a breakthrough," he announced. The gang members finally revealed who was paying them. It's a group called the Hegemony Coalition. Marcus had never heard the name, but Kethmara went pale. "The Hegemony," she whispered. "They're a secret organization of older alien species. They believe in maintaining the traditional power structure in the galaxy." Captain Urel nodded grimly. "They see human inclusion in galactic affairs as a threat to their control. The attacks on Velthari diplomats were meant to discourage species from supporting human rights. And now they know we won't be intimidated," Kethmara said, "which means they'll try something bigger next time." Captain Urel looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Chen, I need to ask you something. The station administrator has authorized me to offer you a choice." Marcus waited. We can arrange for you to transfer to a quiet human colony. New identity, good job, safe life. The hegemony would never find you there. Or, you stay here and help us prepare for whatever they're planning next. But that means accepting that you'll always be a target. Your life will never be simple again. Marcus thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'm staying. Kethmara looked relieved. Are you certain? This path will only get more dangerous. Marcus looked at Zixara, who was watching him with large, trusting eyes. He thought about the Velthari diplomats he'd helped rescue. He thought about all the peaceful species in the galaxy who just wanted to live their lives without fear. Someone has to stand up for the people who can't stand up for themselves, he said. Might as well be me. That night, as Kethmara prepared for her journey to the Velthari homeworld, she made a decision of her own. She would not just defend her choice to invoke Kethvel more. She would argue that her entire people needed to learn from Marcus's example. The Velthari had become so focused on avoiding conflict that they had forgotten how to stand up for anything. Maybe it was time for that to change. But first, she had to survive the Council of Minds, and that would not be easy. As her ship prepared to depart, Kethmara looked back at the station where a human maintenance worker had changed everything by simply doing what he thought was right. She hoped it would be enough to change her people too. Kethmara stood before the Council of Minds on the Velthari homeworld. The chamber was beautiful, with walls of living crystal that sang softly in the breeze. 12 of the wisest Velthari sat in a circle, their ancient eyes studying her with disapproval. You have bound our people to a violent species, Elder Zeftai said, his voice like wind through leaves. Humans are unpredictable, dangerous. This Marcus Chen proves it by his actions. With respect, Elder, Kethmara replied. His actions prove the opposite. He chose to protect my daughter, when he could have walked away safely. Violence is violence, another elder said. The human fought criminals. He was injured in combat. This is exactly why we avoid such entanglements. Kethmara had prepared for this argument. Elder, may I show the council something? She activated a holographic display showing security footage from the station. The elders watched silently as Marcus shielded Zixara, taking blow after blow while refusing to move. They saw him unconscious and bleeding, his only concern being whether the child was safe. This is not violence, Kethmara said. This is sacrifice. This is what we have forgotten in our pursuit of safety. Elder Zeftai frowned. You would have us become like humans? Fighting and dying for strangers? I would have us remember what we once believed, Kethmara said firmly. That protecting the innocent is worth any cost. Meanwhile, back on New Kepler Station, Marcus was learning that his troubles were far from over. If anything, his actions had made them more determined to prove that humans were dangerous. Captain Urel called him to the security office with urgent news. We've intercepted communications, the captain said. The hegemony is planning something big. They're calling it Operation Cleansing. The goal is to drive humans out of the galactic community permanently. Marcus studied the data on the screens. How? They're going to attack the station during the next diplomatic conference. Make it look like human aggression caused the violence. Every major species will have representatives here. Including the Velthari? Captain Urel nodded grimly. If Kethmara succeeds with her council, she'll return with a full delegation. They'll be prime targets. Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Over the next 2 weeks, the station transformed. Security was increased. Defensive systems were checked and rechecked. But Marcus knew that wouldn't be enough. The hegemony had resources and connections that the station couldn't match. The answer came from an unexpected source. Zixara, who had been staying with other human families while her mother was away, brought him a drawing she had made. It's you protecting everyone, she said, showing him a picture of himself standing in front of various alien figures. Mother says, "You taught me that being scared doesn't matter if someone needs help." Marcus looked at the drawing more carefully. Zixara had drawn not just him, but other figures standing with him. Humans and aliens together, all protecting each other. "That's it," he said suddenly. "What's it?" Zixara asked. Marcus picked up his communication device and called Captain Riel. "Captain, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." An hour later, Marcus stood before a gathering of every human on the station. There were only 43 of them, but they filled the small meeting room. "The hegemony wants to prove that humans are violent and dangerous," Marcus said. "They're going to attack the diplomatic conference and blame us for it." "So, what do we do?" asked Janet Wong. "Hide? Run?" "We do the opposite," Marcus said. "We make sure every alien on this station knows exactly who we are and what we stand for." His plan was simple but risky. Every human on the station would volunteer to help with security during the conference. Not as fighters, but as protectors. They would work alongside the alien security forces, making it impossible for the hegemony to claim humans were the aggressors. "You want us to put ourselves in danger," said Tom Harrison, an older engineer. "I want us to stand up for what's right," Marcus replied. "Just like we would want someone to do for us." One by one, every human in the room agreed. 3 days before the conference, Kethmara returned from the Velthari homeworld. She brought news that surprised everyone. "The council has agreed to send a full delegation," she told Marcus, as they reunited in his quarters. Zixara hugged him tightly, chattering about everything that had happened while her mother was away. "That's good news," Marcus said. "There's more," Kethmara said. "The council was impressed by the recordings I showed them. They want to meet you formally," Kethmara said. "The council was impressed, Achin. They want to meet you formally." Marcus groaned. "More ceremonies?" "More than that," Kethmara said seriously. "They want to offer you something that has never been offered to a non-Velthari before." Before she could explain, alarms began wailing throughout the station. "This is Captain Urel," a voice announced over the communication system. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple unidentified ships approaching." The hegemony had arrived early. Marcus grabbed his emergency kit and headed for the door. Kethmara and Zixara followed. "Where are you going?" Kethmara asked. "To do my job," Marcus said. "I'm coming with you," she said. "No. Take Zixara to the safe zones." Kethmara stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Marcus, I told you the council wanted to offer you something. They want to make you part of our family, not just through Kethvelmore, but truly. As my partner, as Zixara's father." Marcus stared at her. What?" "They believe that if a human and a Velthari can form a family bond, it proves that all species can work together." She smiled. "Also," Zixara asked them directly. "She said she wanted you to be her father officially." Zixara nodded seriously. "You're already my father in my heart. The council just wants to make it real." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. A family. A real family. After so many years alone, these two aliens wanted to make him part of their lives permanently. "I would be honored," he said quietly. "Good," Kethmara said. "Now let's go protect our station." The battle that followed was unlike anything New Kepler Station had ever seen. But it wasn't just humans and aliens fighting separately. It was everyone working together. Marcus coordinated evacuation efforts, while Kethmara used her diplomatic connections to call for reinforcements. Zixara, despite her young age, helped translate between species and keep frightened children calm. When the hegemony forces tried to board the station, they found something they didn't expect. Humans and aliens fighting side by side, protecting each other without regard for species differences. The attack failed. More importantly, It failed in front of representatives from dozens of worlds, who saw with their own eyes that humans weren't violent conquerors, but protectors. Months later, Marcus stood in the same crystal chamber where Kethmara had faced the Council of Minds. But this time, he wasn't defending his actions. He was becoming part of a family. The ceremony was beautiful and strange. Words in languages he was still learning. Promises that meant more than any legal contract. When it was over, Wellity won. Zixara ran to him and hugged him tight. "Now you're really my father," she said happily. Kethmara took his hand. "And now you're really my partner." Marcus looked around at the assembled Velthari officials, the alien diplomats, and the small group of humans who had come to witness the ceremony. A year ago, he had been a lonely maintenance worker just trying to get through each day. Now he had a family. A purpose. All because he had chosen to protect a frightened child in an alley. "So what happens now?" he asked Kethmara. She smiled. "Now we go home. All three of us. Together." As their ship left the Velthari homeworld and headed back to New Kepler Station, Marcus watched the stars and thought about how one small act of courage had changed everything. He was no longer just Marcus Chen, maintenance worker. He was Marcus Chen, husband and father. Bridge between species. Proof that the best of humanity wasn't strength or intelligence, but the simple willingness to stand up for others. And that was exactly who he wanted to be.